Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Suchman. I am president of Loyola University's Black Alumni Association. I want to thank you all for being here today. We have another very exciting event for you tonight. In our series, in our Blacklight speaker series, tonight we have Dr. Marion Gerald Hood, who is going to share his story as a Loyola alum, his distinguished career as a OB-GYN, and then also, we'll have other questions for him as well. So we're excited to have you. And the way that the event will flow tonight is that I will introduce the moderator, and our moderator will actually introduce Dr. Hood. And then from there, we also have another distinguished guest on the line as well, is Dr. Crystal Cash, and she is from the Stritch School of Medicine. And Stritch is actually co-hosting this event with us tonight, and we're very excited about that. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us. So what I'd like to start off with is the Blacklight speaker series. And the Blacklight speaker series was actually created last year. What we wanted to do was to have an opportunity to illuminate some of the amazing things that Loyola Black alums are doing. And so when we got together as a board to determine what the name of the series should be, one of our board members, Jay Yancy, came up with the idea of a Blacklight. And when you think about a Blacklight, is whole purpose is designed to illuminate things that are not shown. And so we feel that that is part of our experience with being in Loyola, being a student at Loyola, just basically being there, but not being seen. And we kind of felt like it was a metaphor for our time at Loyola. So next, what I'd like to do is to introduce our moderator for tonight, Jay Yancy. And Jay is a native Chicagoan. He is a serial entrepreneur. He has a computer science degree from Loyola. Jay actually has, again, he's a serial entrepreneur, so he's had several businesses. He's had IT companies, and he has worked at some very distinguished companies within the Chicagoland area, such as Allstate and CTA, TransUnion, and others. Currently, Jay is in partnership with his lovely wife, LaJune. They operate a real estate development company called LG Promise Real Estate Management, where they are actually rebuilding the south side of Chicago one block at a time. And I heard Jay identify himself as a real estate mogul, and he is truly that. He has real estate management property, within the south side of Chicago, as well as in the southern suburbs. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for tonight, Jay Yancy.
Yes, thank you, Karen, for that illustrious introduction. I hope I can live up to it tonight. And with this great opportunity to feature and interview Dr. Hood, who is just an amazing individual, amazing doctor, and been on the wall now for over 60 years practicing medicine. So he has a lot to share with us tonight, a lot of wisdom of his challenges as a Black man in America, as a Black doctor, and just as a man, working his way through medical school and practicing medicine even today. He's still practicing in 2022 after graduating with his medical degree from Loyola University in 1965. So without further ado, hello, Dr. Hood.
Hello.
All right, great to have you. Great to have you. Our first question, Dr. Hood, is, being a kid of the 50s, growing up in the 50s and and the thick of things of the civil rights movement and all the challenges of being Black and American in the 50s. What motivated you to becoming a doctor? I mean, was a certain person? Was it a certain event? Because, opportunities were very limited and expectations were limited back in the 50s for African Americans. So how did you come to the conclusion that you wanted to be a doctor?
Well, I grew up in Griffin, Georgia, and was raised by the village. Inspiration I had was my mother, who went to school as a licensed practical nurse. And
okay.
She dropped out of school because of pregnancy, and had a very hard time in the small town, but she never let anything hold her back. All of her children finished college. If they didn't finish college, they finished a professional school in some type of profession. I won a scholarship to Clark College, which is now Clark Atlanta University, in the field of music. I was a self-taught musician, and I was pretty good until I got to college and found out that there were people who were true musicians. And I learned right away, within 2 weeks, that I was not a musician and that I had to fall back on something else.
Okay.
And I thought about the time that I went to the doctor with my mother, and in this little small town, we had to go around to the back door of the doctor's office and wait. And we were waiting until the last patient, he saw his last patient, and he would come back in the room and take care of my mother. And I said to myself way at that time, this just did not seem right that we would have to do that. And she was in the medical profession also. She's working at a hospital there as a practical nurse. I remember the air raids in the 40s, and my mother was on the air raid team. And when the air raids would go out, she would have to change into her white uniform and leave her children at home and report to the hospital. And I thought, well, she's a first line, we call them first line of defense now, that she would do that and sacrifice that. And I said, this seemed like a nice profession. But the music situation at Clark made me know that, gosh, you better find something else to do because you're not a musician. And so I had to let that little scholarship money go away. I had some friends who were from Florida and Alabama. And one of my friends in biology, I went into biology, talked to me the first day, and the first thing he said to me was he was going to win the Nobel Prize in medicine. I had no idea what the Nobel Prize was.
Okay.
There was a guy from Alabama that we thought was stupid, in Mississippi and all, that we thought that were behind in time, talking about winning the Nobel Prize in medicine. And so I was in classes with these type of people, and we sort of bonded and we studied together. We started out with 58. We ended up with 6 in biology when I finished. And so that was the beginning of my wanting to become a physician. I had to do something other than what I had the money.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, let me interrupt.
I worked my way through there by working in the dormitories. I cleaned up the dormitory in female dorms. I did the bathrooms and the doors and polished it. Everything was in shape, ship shape. And so it made it very easy for me to learn to do hard work. The other thing was my brother. I had my older brother he left and went to college at age 16. He was a Ford fellow,
Okay.
fellow to Clark Atlanta University. But he was so smart that people would come around, including the white people, would come around and take him around and show him off. He could read it and he could tell you everything in the book. So as a second son, for me to do anything, I had to work hard just to be able to go to the same place he went to. I remember having Easter speeches. I would have 5 lines and he would have a chapter in the Bible. So the pressure was there to excel. And to do that, you had to learn to do hard work.
Okay, so it seems like your inspiration was your mother, your brother, and your friends in college, got you on that path. And yourself, of course, getting the musical scholarship, at least getting you into college and getting you that exposure. So that was awesome within itself. And it just seems like the folks in your circle didn't seem to see any impediments or obstacles, as from a perspective of being a Black man in America, that you guys just set your mind to it and decided that's what you want to do, and you accomplished it. So that's truly amazing. Coming from the Deep South, and what we know, or what we think we know about the South, and studying history and seeing movies and so on and so forth. So that's amazing within itself. But we do know that once you graduated from University of Atlanta, Clark, that you did have one major roadblock right after graduation. You got your degree. What did you get your degree in, matter of fact?
I got my degree in biology.
In biology. Okay. In chemical. Okay. And then you decided you were going to apply to Emory University for attend medical school, one of the most prestigious universities in America. So again, you just had no limitation. You said, this is where I want to go in Atlanta, and you put your application in, but you had a major setback at that point in 1959. You were rejected. And the reason you were rejected is because you were a Negro and Blacks, and they did not allow Black students to attend Emory University at that time. Matter of fact, you kept the rejection letter. Matter of fact, I have a copy of it here somewhere. I wanted to even read it off, what they said verbatim in the rejection letter. It came in: Mr. Hood, acknowledge is made of your letter of July 30 enclosing your application for admission to our School of Medicine. I'm sorry, I must write you that we are not authorized to consider for admission a member of the Negro race. I regret that we cannot help you. This is signed by L.L. Clegg, of the Director of Administration. And then he says, P.S. I'm returning herewith your $5 application fee. So how did you feel about that letter at that time? You got your app, it said, hey, we can't let you in because you're a Negro. And actually even have a law in place, I read in Georgia at the time, where if the Emory University had let you in, they would have lost their tax exemption status.
Yes, so, I was, as I graduated from Clark, I remembered it as my graduation, but it turned out it was a Founders Day program where a professor from Emory came over and was awarded honorary degree from my university. And I said to myself, how can they give him an honorary degree from my university and they won't even let me on the campus at his university? Mm. So when I finished school, I wrote him a letter, which turned out to be the president of Emory University. I wrote him a letter that he was a member of my class, because I thought it was during my graduation that he got the degree, but he got the degree in the same year that I finished. So I called him a classmate. I said, as a member of my class, could you help me get into Emory University? Hmm. Now, I had been rejected by Howard University. And wow. I was on the waiting list at Marion University. So I had no idea, no real expectation that I was going to get into Emory. But the point was, I wanted to let them know that I thought that if you can walk around and do what you want to do, then you should be able to, I should at least be able to come over there and look at your school and put in an application. So I put the application in, knowing very well what the outcome was going to be. So another called me and told me, you have a letter from Emory University. And I said to her, is it thin or is it thick? She says, thin. I said, you really have to worry about opening it, because if it was thick, they would be asking me more things to do to get in school. If it's thin, it's a rejection letter. So she opened the letter and she kept it. When she died, they were dispensing her stuff, and my sister saw this letter and she brought it to me and said, Mom kept this letter. So I took the letter and looked at the letter, and I put it on my wall in my office where medical students would come into my office. They would see this letter in my office. So at the time that I got the letter, it didn't matter to me whether they let me in or not. I just wanted to make a point that I thought their laws were not fair and that they need to take another position, another look at this.
Okay. And one other amazing point about this is that what you have to tell us, what was the process of you attending Loyola or making Loyola your choice ultimately and getting accepted. But also, I think I read that the state of Georgia paid your tuition when you graduated from Loyola or something to that effect, because they actually paid people to go out of state to school because they weren't going to let you in state to the Georgia schools.
What they did was, if I could go to school at the University of Georgia, say it cost me $500 to go to the University of Georgia. And when I went to Loyola, if it cost me $800 to go to the University of Georgia, to Loyola, I would pay the $500. They would pay the $300. So I was paying the same thing as the in-state fee to go to, but they did that to keep me from going to those schools. I would go home at Christmas and at the end of the year, and they would write me a check and I send it back to Loyola. And so the state was, they were, I won't say they were trying to do right, but what they was any way they could keep us out of the schools in Georgia, they did it. If they had to pay the full tuition, I'm sure they would have done it. I was at Howard. I went to, when I finished graduate Clark, I went to Howard University in biochemistry, a master's in biochemistry. When I got there were people in my class that I did not know were even interested in medicine who were in medical school at Howard. And I was very disappointed in that. And I was saying, gosh, I think I'm pretty smart, but I didn't get in. And then I thought about what the lady at Meharry said. She said to me, you need to go home, read the newspaper for a year and retake the examination. She said, your science scores are very good, but your everyday living stuff is not up to par. You need to read the newspaper and look at the news and know something about current event. I was talking to one of my friends at Howard, and he said to me, you know, you should apply to a white school.
Another one, huh?
Apply to a white school. I didn't get in. So apply again. So I sent the same application, the same medical MedCap test scores and all that. And Loyola University called me up and asked me to come for an interview. I went for the interview. There were maybe 20 other people there for the interview. And I went in, and I remember Father Berry asked me, one of the main questions I heard was, how much money do you expect to make in medicine? And I said, well, my brother's a school teacher. He makes $3,500 a year. My daddy works at a warehouse. He's making 65 cents an hour. So I figured that if I made 3 times what my brother made, that had to be what doctors made. So I told him $10,000. I got through the interview, I went to a little place called the Greek across from Cook County Hospital, and I heard these other 20 guys talking. And one guy said, they asked me how much you want to make. I told them $300,000. What? I told them 150. I'm taking over my dad's ophthalmology practice. And I'm saying, gosh, they must think I'm crazy. Saying I want to make $10,000.
$10,000, yeah.
But at that point in time, it was a matter of eating. It was a matter of my measurement was an uncle who owned a funeral home who would come home every day and eat a steak, and the kids eat the thigh and the leg of the chicken. And I said, if I could be able to eat a steak, that's moving on up.
That moves it on up. You get a steak dinner every night.
So I applied, and they accepted me, and they told me that would take me. I need to send in $195 to hold a place in class. I left Chicago. I went to Washington, D.C. I went home and told my mother I need $195. I had $10 in my pocket. I went and played bingo. I won like $105 for the coverall. And the members from the VFW club gave me the difference in the money, and I sent it up there and held a place in my class.
That's awesome. So you didn't win the money playing bid whist. You won the money playing bingo, huh?
Yes, my sister was a big bingo player, so we went playing. But the good Lord was looking for me, Lord. Maybe that's what the Jesuit did for me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's a testament to Loyola that they did let you in at that time in 1961 in the hotbed of the civil rights movement. And you got Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And there was just a lot going on at that time. Did the civil rights movement affect you at all?
Well, when I got to Loyola, it was a matter of survival. And so my biggest problem there was eating. And I had no books to study. I did have a very good background in all the sciences. I did not know anatomy and also in neurology and stuff. I didn't know that. So I would always have to study what the other people were not studying. If we had a neurology test, then I could do my other stuff. But I had to study neurology first at the time that I really didn't need it. So it made it very difficult for me to do that. And Loyola gave me a chance, and I got there. I was one of two Blacks in the school. They had a Black every other year. When I got there as a freshman, there was a Black from Jamaica, and he was a junior. When I got to be a junior, they brought in another person, Dr. Maurice Dr. They brought him in. So it was always one every 2 years. So two at Stritch University all those times. So it was a little different at home. At home, you knew they didn't want you there. And at Stritch, you sort of got figured that, well, they really don't want me here, but you know, they have to show this token. I was a token, and that's okay.
Okay, so you did what you had to do in order to eat and survive at Stitch, the medical school at Loyola. When was the last time you were back on campus? And even before you answer that question, what has motivated you to present tonight? Is there something you want to say to your fellow alumni or to Loyola University, or just what's your motivation tonight?
I was asked to do it. This letter that you saw, this is how I got started. We were sitting at McDonald's, a bunch of old men. We would go walking, and then we'd go up there and drink coffee and eat sausage biscuits. So whatever we walked off, we put right back on. And so they decided, some of the guys said, hey, listen, we're all old here. Why don't we just do a series once a month where each person would get up and tell their life story? And so when it got to be my time, I brought that letter out and I passed the letter out to those old guys. One guy who was a professor at Emory had a stroke, and he used to go to Starbucks every night. He dropped his briefcase opened up, and a young man helped him pick up the briefcase. And he saw the letter, and he took a picture of it and put it on Facebook. Well, that started a whole lot of stuff. And once a year at Black History Month, that letter would appear on YouTube, not YouTube, on Facebook. I'm sure it appeared on other places, but I don't know those places. And so people became interested. I got a letter from Loyola University, Stritch School of Medicine, that said, "Oh, you're one of our most famous alumni. We like to do a story on you." That was 4 years ago.
Okay.
And so I've never heard from them anymore. And I have never been back to Loyola Stritch School of Medicine campus since I graduated. I went to 3 class reunions. The last one, the first 2 was like, I was just there. The third one was, I went to the reunion. It was almost over with, and I decided I'm gonna go. And when I got there were people there who were seemed very happy to have me there. At Loyola, things were about the same as it would have been at Emory. My professors didn't engage me. My friends, my classmates didn't engage me. They put pictures on Facebook of class parties, and they had a Christmas party every year. And I said, "Where do y'all have these parties?" I was never invited to a Christmas party, anything like that. So it made it where I realized, gosh, but there were people who helped me. People who helped me. The Dean Sheehan of the medical school came and got me out of histology class one day, and he says to me, "Sign here, sign here, sign here." I signed 3 sheets of paper. He said, "Yeah, you can go back in the room." And when I signed the piece of paper, it was for money for me to pay for the school, because I was working. I cleaned up the kitchen every night. I mopped the floors every weekend, and I had a Black man and wife who were the cook at this fraternity house, who would leave me some food. I was getting room, but I was not getting board. So I worked in the kitchen, and they always left probably the best steak, probably.
Okay, you was already getting your steak, huh?
Yes.
That's marvelous. That's marvelous. So you was on the campus at the same time that the Loyola University basketball team with Jerry Harkins won the national championship in 1963. So what was that like? Did you know Jerry? Did you interact with those guys at all?
No, I interacted with Dr. Clarence Redd, who was on the team before. He had just graduated. I interacted with him. At the time that they won the championship, it wasn't about sports for me. I listened to it on the radio. I know that they played at Cincinnati. I did not know they played Mississippi. I did not know about that until later. The first handshake, the first time the team from Mississippi had played integrated sports. And so I met them, and I listened to this on the radio, and Loyola never substituted anybody in the whole game. They played the whole game. And there was a guy from Cincinnati, I can't think his name, but he seemed to have scored 50 or 60 points. Every time I look around, he was scoring. And I think it's the shot that get Ross the chance to get the ball and put the ball back up. But I was not interested. I enjoyed that, but I was in the survival mode at that time. You know, I think more about it now than I've ever thought about it. But
Oh,
in that day,
one.
it was eating, it was sleeping, it was studying, it was not flunking out.
I know how that is. I've been there. I know how rough it could be at Loyola. So you just there trying to survive, trying to eat and study and trying not to get kicked out, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So I guess, Loyola winning the championship in 1963, this first Black team, all Black team, had really no effect on you on campus or anything like that.
You see, I was not on campus. I was at a little fraternity house with maybe 12 or 15, 20 people. And so I was never on Loyola's campus. When I got to Chicago, to medical school, I got out of the train station and I asked somebody, where is Loyola Medical School? And they said, it's right up the street. And I walked from the train station with a bag. I left my footlocker at the train station with a bag. And the longer I walked, the more it says right up the street. And I saw a man stopped and looked at me as I was walking. And it was a fella from Clark College who turned around and helped me carry this bag up to near Cook County Hospital. That's where Stritch School of Medicine was. And I walked in the room, and there was a Miss Keneally, who was the friendliest white lady I've ever seen in my life, who introduced me, who told me what to do. I said, where are you living? I said, I live up on the campus. It's a campus up the North Campus. She said, you can't live up there and go to medical school down here by Cook County Hospital. So she saw a guy come by and she said, this young man needs a place to stay. So y'all find a place to put him up. So we walked from Walcott Street to Ashley Street and went in this fraternity house, and they said they had no room. There was a fella from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Dr. Al Brown, who said they have a room upstairs, but we'll have to build it. So we went and got building materials and we built a room.
Literally built a room for you, huh? Wow.
And that room turned out to be the best room, because one of the smartest fellow in the class slept for 10 minutes at the time, and they turned off his clock. He came up to us and he was in the room, which really helped me, because when he studied his lesson, he turned his lessons, his knowledge into a story. And he would tell me the story. And then when I would go to take the exam or go to the class, I remember the story, and it would help me for those classes that I did not have books for. And so pretty soon, half of the class was coming up to this room to hear these stories. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Connery probably did that for me, because they saw that I was struggling.
Okay, well, you couldn't even afford books, so yeah, it would, we could see why you were struggling.
Work hard, yes.
Yeah, wow, that's truly amazing story. So, once you graduated, I think you graduated with your medical degree in 1965, and you started practicing medicine. At that point, I take it you went back home to Atlanta. So, what was the progression from there?
No, what happened was I graduated in 65, but I didn't leave there until 66.
Okay.
To get out of school, we had to take an oral examination. And the examination I took, the examiner asked me a question. And the question was, you have a man in the emergency room who's unconscious, what do you do? And so I went and started telling him I would do a complete examination, blah, 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 blah. And as I was telling him what I was looking for, he said, what are you looking for in his ear? And the first thing I thought was basal skull fracture. I don't know where I pulled that out from. And he said to me, how can you tell the difference between cerebral spinal fluid and plain old snot? And I didn't know. And for 50 years, I flunked that oral examination. For 50 years, 60 years, I could not figure out why I flunked. I had never failed an exam. I had never been brought called on the carpet about anything, but I had to spend time doing something. What happened was I was never the first to see a patient. Never. I was always, if I saw the patient, it's after 20 other people has already done. The patient is tired. And so what I had to do was not very pleasant to the patients. So I did what I did very cursory because I could see my mother laying there, them doing that. Okay. So as the thing went, they kept me back to do clinical studies. I didn't go to any classes. I just had to go to the hospital and do stuff like that. So before they turned me loose. I left there and did an internship in Orange, California. And it was almost like Griffin, Georgia, where the Ku Klux Klan were there, but there were the John Birch Society. And so I was very limited in what I could do, but I always had one or two friends who took care of me.
I see. You had a lot of angels along the way. Like you said, to take care of you, put you up, to feed you, and just make sure you have what you need to survive. That's great.
Let me tell you about an angel, and then we'll go to the next question. I was mopping the floor one day in this fraternity house, and I mopped up on some great big shoes. And when I mopped up on the shoes, I looked up, and it was a Catholic priest, Father Berry. Father O'Malley. Father O'Malley said to me, he said, I'm looking for Gerald Hood. I said, you got it.
All right.
I'll wait till you finish. I'm going to take you out to dinner. So we went out to dinner. And when I got out to dinner, he said, order anything you want. I looked at the menu and I ordered a hamburger. He said, no, order something else. That's all I need is a hamburger. This is a delicacy. I mean, this is eating. He said, we went to a place, it was like an old Western movie. He said something to the man, and the waiter came back with a great big old steak that you could cut with your fork. He said, I understand you working for a steak. Here's a good steak for you. Father O'Malley gave me, he said, I am the priest at a Catholic church and we have a ministry. I'm going to give you $30 a month. Not for books, not for school, for you to go out on a Saturday night and have a beer with the boys.
Okay.
And that took some of the pressure off, and that I could go and I could relax, and then I could go back and get back in the barrel again. So.
Oh, wow,
Angel showed up.
Yeah. Like I said, he has a lot of good people to support you along the way, and that's a blessing. It's a great thing. It's a great story that it wasn't all about Black people. It was a concatenation of folks who helped you survive, which is a beautiful thing. Of humanity just reaching out to you. That's wonderful. So once you got out there, you finally got the medical degree, and you're a doctor. So what was it like, practicing medicine? Did you finally go back to Georgia and get your practice started? How was it?
Well, I left California and came back to Chicago, and I did the OBGYN residency. I left there and went to Vietnam. I spent 2 years in the service. I came back to Atlanta. I took a year off I didn't take a year off. I was Vietnamized. Just screwed up. And so I took a year just painting. I paint the walls, I paint the chairs, I did my own physical therapy, mental therapy. And I started in practice. My first incident in practice was at the emergency room at Cook County Hospital. I was waiting on a patient, this white guy, and I was cleaning him up, and he spit in my face. And I reached back, I reached and grabbed the stuff, and I wiped it off, and I kept taking care of him. And I started IV and I did it. And as about maybe 15 or 20 minutes later, he said, "Why are you still doing this when I spit in your face?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a physician, and physicians have to take care of everybody." And that I learned right then and there that it wasn't going to be a smooth road. It was going to be just about the same type of road I've been walking with obstacles that being overcome my whole lifetime.
Well, that's a tremendous story. Basically, you sound like you were the Jackie Robinson of the medical field, taking all kind of insults and still serving folks at the same time. That level of humility and control. I don't think I could have continued to serve somebody after they spit on me, but that's just a testament to who you were.
In this day and age, if you do that, you're probably going to lose it. Somebody's going to lose their life. But all I needed was one person. One thing we learned in the South was you do not cross white people. So I was in medical school. I was given a chance. I was not going to let some poor white who spit in my face take that away from me. Because if I had done something to him, you know what the consequences would have been. It wouldn't have been that he was somebody spitting in my face. It was this uppity black that's causing these problems.
Yeah.
And it was very hard. I was an OBGYN in the service, and I was doing infertility, and a patient walks in for infertility. She walks in my little hooch, and she keeps walking right on through the hooch. She saw me, and she just kept walking right on through. And then she went around and told the nurse, who happened to be a black nurse, "I can't see him." He said, "Well, you can't see him, you can't see anybody." So her husband, who was a captain, brought her back up there and said, "Listen, this is my wife. You take care of her. We're trying to have children. Can you help us have children?" Luckily, I had children, but all I did was slow him down a little bit. That's all. This everyday stuff had to stop. So.
Wow. So how did your black patients treat you as a doctor?
The black patients that I had a very small practice. I did not try to earn $300,000. I tried to be fair. I had a small practice. The patient that gravitated to me was usually the patient who couldn't pay. And so my charity began from the day they moved in. Very few, if they had insurance, they went to the north side of town. They don't want to be there with the person who had insurance and the person who didn't smell so good. So it was difficult in that way. But I developed a practice, a concierge practice. I eventually dealt with Eastern Airline and Delta Airline flight attendants, who, if you saw one, you had 20. So I built my practice being very small and being very personal. In fact, my practice was called Women Personal Healthcare.
Okay. So you like to, I guess, help the underdog, so to speak, and serve them.
Well, yes, the underdog needs help too. That's pretty much what I'm doing now. The people where I work now are the poorest of the poorest, and no insurance, can't buy medicine. So you're always trying to figure out a way to get them through the system and get them some assistance without breaking the bank, which is already broken. So
yeah, that's great. That's great, my brother. So what kind of advice would you give some young person wanting to enter medical school or wanting to get into the medical practice? Is there some words of wisdom you'd like to share with them?
Yes, don't do it.
No.
I am. A person going into medicine has to be able to sacrifice almost everything, including family. A person going into medicine must be able to take defeat because somebody's going to die, and there are going to be some people you can't help. A person going into medicine is his own retirement. If he doesn't save for retirement, there's no, you work for IBM, no matter, you be 99 years old, you still get a retirement check. A person in medicine has to want it, has to love it enough that when they call you at 3 o'clock in the morning and you go back home at 4 and they call you back at 5, you have to get up and go without worrying about or grumbling about, I have to get up and do this. It's a sacrifice that Blacks have been doing for years, but with other fields open, it's kind of hard to get somebody to do 78 hours, 75 hours a week of work when
Wow.
35 or 40 at another job, you know.
Yeah, that's two jobs. So one of our last questions for you is, we know that you ultimately got an apology from Emory University for the rejection letter that they gave you, and they had a formal apology, I guess, on June 16, 2021. So how did you feel about that apology? Did you feel vindicated? And just what's your take on it at this point?
I did not fault Emory University for what happened to me. I held the state of Georgia for what happened to me. I looked at the churches, I looked at all the big box playing like Home Depot and places like, I looked at places like that says, you know, you see this going on, and by not doing anything about it, it means you agree with it. And so I was not angry at Emory. I thought that letter came out 3 or 4 years ago, and I never heard anything from them about that letter or what was going on. Just like this webinar here, the Office of Diversity at Emory University saw this letter, and the moderator, the lady in charge of it, says, you know, I wish he was still alive so I could have talked to him about this. And she was talking to another female doctor. She said, he's still alive. I work with him every day. She said, he's still alive. Okay. So she called me up and asked me, would I participate in that Juneteenth celebration? That's what it was for. And so it was on Juneteenth. So we started doing that. Emory Medical School saw that this was happening, and they jumped in, and they want to offer me an honorary degree. And I said, this all started with an honorary degree. Emory got an honorary degree, that's why it's up there. So I refused an honorary degree. I'm 84 years old. It doesn't matter to me about a degree. Right now I'm worried about what box they're gonna put me in. I'm not worried about it. So they decided, what can we do? I said, well, one of the things to do is I would like to tell the story. And so they did the thing on the rest of the story. And Emory did a very good job of doing that. I have it at home. I plaque it up and all, but I was not looking for anything from Emory.
Okay, one final question. We always like to have our speakers present a solution to the ills of America. So one of the things that we're dealing with this segment is, racism and institutional racism and discrimination in the medical field. So, and one of the statistics that's out there is that 70% of the medical doctors that graduate with medical degrees come through HBCUs, historically Black colleges. So what can schools like Loyola University that are predominantly white do to change that narrative around and get more Black medical students through these institutions to level the playing field?
The playing field will probably never be level. For you to level the playing field, you either have to increase the number of students you're taking into colleges, or you got to cut back on some of the others. To increase Black Americans, you got to cut back on white Americans. That was that entitlement they said we had. You cannot be. They kept me out of medical school because of my race, and they can't let me into medical school because of my race. So when you go to Howard and Xavier and Meharry and those places, you're there with 90% Black students. One class will have more than most of the, I don't know this for sure, but they would have more than at least 10 or 20 other white schools, especially if they're only doing two every 4 years, or one every 2 years. So somewhere or another, it has to be that you're going to make a place. Somewhere you have to look at, you can't look at MCAT scores. Somewhere you have to look at the desire more than the ability to do it. I'm sure that there were people at the school when I went to Loyola University that were only medical doctors because their fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers were medical doctors. They really
right.
had that passion or that need to. They just said, "Hey, this is an income." By the way, people pay them, but people don't pay me. So,
Okay, Dr. Hood. Well, thank you. This has been an amazing segment. I've enjoyed it from end to end. I wish we had another hour to go to continue to explore your story and your wisdom and all your anecdotes, continue to advance us. But we want to turn it over to a quick Q&A, I believe. If we have time for Q&A. If not, I guess we turn it over to Dr. Crystal.
Good evening, and welcome to Stritch. Certainly some things have changed, and we are heavily recruiting. We have a problem very much suggested by Dr. Hood that there are so many other possibilities for Black people today that medical school is just as hard and just as challenging as it's ever been. Although our process has changed. As Stritch, I am the Associate Dean for Diversity, and we're trying to make sure that we produce a workforce in medicine that is representative of the United States, meaning our recruitment processes, our ability to retain students. We have a holistic admissions process, which means that we don't just use MCATs and GPAs as indicators of whether a student has capacity. We look at resilience, we look at what they've done, we look at motivation for medicine. So through these different policies that we have increased our enrollment of students of color. But through the office, we have our strategic initiatives, and so those are represented in this diagram: representational, diversity, inclusive climate, meaning changing that same climate that Dr. Hood was talking about, where he was isolated and did not felt included in the process. Equitable opportunity in not only for admissions, but for graduation, for fellowships, for residencies, partnerships with communities and other programs, and culturally responsive care, changing the curriculum to be representative of the patients that we see. Relative to Loyola University, we have programs like the RUPE program, which is taking people who are going into a associate degree and giving them some of the prerequisites so that they can then go on and do their full bachelor's degree and get into medical school. We have some pre-medical programs, HPrep. We dig into high schools and we try to look at STEM programs and get students interested in that. We have the Pulse program, which we're partnered with Proviso East High School and looking at those students. The Aspire program is for college students who are interested in coming to our program. They can spend some time in the summer getting acclimated to both the curriculum and the environment. And we also have affiliation with the medical program for medical sciences at Loyola. They have a 2-year master's program, master's level program. They also have the Masters of Medical Physiology. And we also recruit from other programs. Southern Illinois University has a post-bac program, and we get plenty of students from them. So all of this to say that we're digging deep into the pipeline.